on here. Yep, it looks like we are working. I can see your comments this way. Very, very exciting. So happy Tuesday. Let me know how y'all are doing. I'm excited for our hang today. We're going to chat about the game-changing sale that you can make in your business that sets you up to grow and scale your business. So if you're on my email list, or if you're a part of my world, or if you saw the post we put out in the group here, I prefaced this and I talked a little bit about this idea. Something I tell my clients all the time is that you're always selling in your life. Daniel H. Pink talks about this quite a bit in To Sell Is Human. I don't think this is a new concept. I think he talks about it really well. And just this idea, like, we are always, as humans, we are always selling people all day long. We are selling people on, the restaurant we go to or that we want to go to. We're selling, if you have kids, you're selling your kids on what time to go to bed, or if they need to eat their veggies, or your kids are selling you on they're not going to eat their veggies. So this is, I'm noticing, oh, hey, Becky, nice to see you. Okay, yay, this is working. Nice to have you here. And anyone else, please say hi if you're live. Always excited to have y'all know who's here. And please throw in questions as you have them. We haven't gone live in this format in a while through Zoom, so I want to make sure the tech is working. So also let me know if I'm like freezing or doing anything weird like that. Anyway, bringing us back to our conversation, I think something that's really interesting is we are always selling all day long in our personal lives, and we don't even think about how often we're really selling people on, our belief system, on the way we think. For anyone who is into politics, right? You're selling people on your ideas around politics. We do this all day long. We think nothing of it, and we don't think we're necessarily selling in our day-to-day life unless we're having a conversation like this. And I find it really fascinating that as soon as it comes to business, how many of us suddenly are like, wait, but I don't know how to sell. I can't sell. Selling is bad. Selling is yucky. Selling feels hard. I know this was the story when I started my business. Even though I had been excellent in sales outside of my business, I had this whole narrative that I wasn't good at sales. I didn't know how to sell. Selling was yucky. Fill in all the stories there. Feel free to chime in if that's something you've experienced. And I think what's really, really fascinating is if we play with this concept of you're always selling in your day-to-day life, it's really interesting to then look at what is different then when it comes to selling in your business, particularly for those of you who have ever had to sell outside of your business. So I know me personally, I worked in advertising for a hot second, representing directors, which is basically sales, before I started my business. And for a decade, I was an actress. I think that's where I actually really learned selling, because I really did have a small business selling my skills as an actress. But I worked in bars and restaurants where all you're doing is selling food and beverages, especially if you're wanting to get good tips, right? You're selling people on buying more. So I was actually very, very good at sales. And I found it very interesting to witness how I didn't even question my ability of selling when I was working in a bar or restaurant. But as soon as I started my business and I had to sell my own work, everything changed and the tune changed. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about why that happens. And then I want to talk about the game-changing sale that I made that I want to invite you to make in your business. I bet it's not what you think. You can definitely guess what you think it is. And then from that, there are two other sales that I think are really important to make in your business that literally change the game for every other sale you will make to help you build and scale your business. So we're going to break this apart. We're going to talk about some of the mindset behind this always, of course, and some of the practicals around it. And then I will share some journaling prompts that you can play with as well at the end. Becky says, I'm in the last week of launch, so this is big on my mind. Ooh, congratulations. Happy last week of launch. Definitely feel free if you have any specific questions, even if it's not completely related, feel free to throw them at us. I hope that this is helpful for you and relevant to what you're talking or what you're doing with your launch. And for all of you, as I'm talking through this, always, I feel like I say this every week, that this is for you. So if you have a question that I'm not covering, please, I don't know unless you share them with me. So now we're on the replay, throw them at me. If you watch on the replay, if you don't mind tagging me at Kim Argetsinger, it's more likely for me to notice that you have a question for me, and I'll make sure to come back. Always happy to answer if I'm able to. Definitely what I want to do. So let's just chat a little bit first about why it's so different when we go from, we're selling all day in our life, we're selling our friends, our family, our kids, if we have kids, or our kids are selling us on things. We might have had a job in sales, and why suddenly it's so different when we sell in our own business and when we sell our own work, because I think this can really help unpack sometimes why it can be so challenging to make sales, or why sales can feel like I don't know, for some reason, I think sales is probably the biggest thing in business where it seems like there must be some secret out there that people aren't telling me. One of the things I think, and you'll have to tell me if this feels true or not for you, but I know for me and so many of my clients, the big difference, even if they've come from maybe a corporate world where their job was literally their like sales director, and then they start their own business and they're like, wait, I was a sales director, and now why does sales feel so challenging? I think the big difference is when you start to sell your own work, particularly if you're selling something that is service based or that is something artistic, something from your heart, something from your soul, something that's very close to you. I think what starts to happen is we start to collapse everything in sales into the meaning you have around yourself as a human being, around what it means to make and receive money for something, around what that energy exchange means. And I think we also tend to get wrapped up around what, like how good our work is, our self-worth, all of that gets wrapped up into your offer and into selling. Whereas when you're, let's say, at a bar like I was, if you're I worked at a place here in New York City, meatpacking, where we would sell like flights of champagne. And I could sell, someone 20 bottles of champagne, and that would be a high ticket sale, but I wouldn't nearly be emotionally wrapped up in it the same way because that champagne had nothing to do with me. It felt very outside of me. The money exchange, like all of it felt very disconnected from me as a human being, where I think in our businesses, so often we don't create that separation and we suddenly like almost become our work and see everything to be the same thing. So we make that energy exchange, the sales transaction, also mean something about us where we might not if we're selling someone else's work or selling as a sales role. Y'all let me know if this is making sense, because I think this is really tied into where I see the biggest game-changing sale you can make in business. And I do want to hear if any of you have any guesses on that. I'm just going to see, because I know there's a little lag. I don't think there's any guesses, but I'd be interested to see what your guesses are, because I think I know something I have been taught is the biggest sale in business is being sold on yourself and your work, which I do believe in, but I think there's actually a sale that precedes that, and a sale that is something I'm constantly supporting my clients with, because what I find really, really fascinating, and you all will have to tell me if this feels true or not. I find for a lot of business owners who are heart-centered and purpose and passion driven, if you're starting a business, they're around your work and you want to get paid for your work. I find when you start your business, there is a part of you that believes in your work and that believes in your worth and that believes that is essentially sold on yourself and your work, or you wouldn't be starting a business. You wouldn't be putting all of the energy effort that goes into what it means to start a business. I find for the majority of people that I'm working with and who are in this space, you're generally not the people who are like, I'm just doing this as a quick get rich quick scheme, or I'm just trying to do this because like I don't know how else to make money. Most of the people, if you're here, where you're in this space, this is because you have a business around work you really, really care about. And I find if we peel back the layers, most people actually do believe in their work, sometimes even more than they give themselves credit for. I actually think, and you all, again, this is my opinions and I help clients with. You have to tell me if this feels true for you or not. And this was the biggest sale I had to make myself. I find for a lot of us, we lie and pretend that we're not as sold on our work and we don't believe in our work because we haven't made the first most important sale, which is the sale that says it is okay for me to be a business owner that sells something and makes money from something. It is okay essentially to sell. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit, but I think the first game-changing sale in business, especially for those of you who are purpose, passion driven, and heart-centered, is the sale where you sell yourself essentially on the beauty and the transformation and the service of selling your work. And you sell yourself on sales being a neutral part of business and an energy exchange, instead of what I find happens for so many business owners is there's such a narrative around sales being icky, sales being yucky. And there's so much of their money story that gets wrapped up in sales where it starts to feel like, oh, when I'm selling, I'm doing something wrong. When I'm selling, if I sell you my service, I'm taking something away from you. I'm taking money away from you. This is bad. This is pushy. I'm going to manipulate you. They've maybe had a bad experience on the buying side of something. And there's all of this mindset drama around what it means to sell. And the reason I think it's interesting, and the reason I think this is the most important sale, is it's really interesting to notice that same mindset drama doesn't come up when we take the same action of selling outside of business and look, but wait, when you talk to your husband and talk about what restaurant you want to go to next week, and you sell him on your idea for what restaurant you want to go to, does that feel pushy? Does that feel yucky? Does that feel gross? And it's really interesting to notice how for most people that does not feel any of the negative connotations we attach to selling in our business when it comes to our work. Because I think there's something when money gets involved, and when money gets involved with your work as opposed to someone else's work, that just kicks up so much around what it means to receive, to have, to make money, to get paid for something, that energy exchange. And then that gets transferred on top of what you make your work mean. And I find that's actually what can cause so much of the noise that comes up for people around, I'm not good enough, my work isn't good enough, and start to question their work, where they feel like they're not sold on their work, because suddenly now they're having to sell their work and put a price tag to it and ask for that energy exchange. And I think that is often what causes a lot of the self-doubt to creep in that wasn't necessarily there to begin with. I know this is a little bit of one of those concepts where I'm like, I want to pause and make sure this is landing, then I'll give some examples. Becky says, I believe my work is an answer to a need. My work has value, but yes, it definitely gets tangled a bit in me. Oh, and the same comment before. I'm in the last week of my launch, so this is big on my mind. Yeah, I think thank you for saying that, Becky, because I think this is such a common thing and normal for everyone. And I mean, especially when we're selling our services, right? It's really hard not to make the value of it get tangled up in who we are as a human being. And of course, there's a part of us that we infuse into our work, especially like I'm a coach, I sell my work, like my business is me in many ways. So I definitely hear and am picking up what you're saying. And I think it's so valuable for us when we can start to look at it neutrally, where it's like, yes, that is true, but can we start to separate that out and also see, well, of course, that's you showing up. It is not you intrinsically as a human being or your personal worth or your personal value. It's simply like a neutral, I feel like this is a funny word to say, but commodity, a neutral thing you're offering and selling in your business. And I think the more we can neutralize that and kind of take the emotional charge out of it, the easier it is to sell. So hopefully that makes sense, Becky. And I think that is such a beautiful just reflection and just helpful for everyone who's watching now and later as well to hear, because I'm pretty sure everyone feels that time from time to time. One of the things that comes up for me as we're chatting through this week, if any of y'all listened to this week's podcast episode, one question, we had a friend of mine, a good mastermind sister friend of mine, Elise, on the podcast, and she shared a brilliant question. I won't give the whole episode away. I'll make sure we link to it. But we talked about this idea and this question of what are you making this mean, or what do you make this mean? And I think it's a really valuable question in the context of what we're talking about here, in terms of what do you make it mean to sell your own work? What do you make it mean when someone does or doesn't buy your work? And I think it's just helpful to notice, if you ask yourself that question and unravel that, how much we tend to make that mean something about us as humans instead of something like just simply data in our business. Again, I get that is easier said than done, because we are also our businesses when we're service providers. And for as much as we want to create separation, there's only so much separation we can create. But I do think it's really helpful when we can look through this, where it's like, oh, isn't this interesting to see like how much I'm making this mean, and how much I might be making this sale or not sale mean that really has nothing to do with my actual business, with actual business data. Versus if we can look at simply data, it's a whole different narrative we might tell ourselves about sales. And I find for most people, if you look at what you're making that mean and what you're making selling in your business mean, again, I don't want to like, everyone's mindset is not exactly the same. Everyone is not going to have the same narrative in their mind. But I find if you're in this space and you're attracted to my work, for a lot of us, there is at least a little, like couple little slithers of a mindset or a story or a narrative that we are making selling mean we're taking something away from someone. We are taking money away from someone, that it is bad, that it's yucky, that it's pushy, that it's manipulative. And so I think that's such a helpful thing to unwind, because I really think that's the core of then so much that gets dumped onto the rest of your business. And I think one of the sort of like, I hate to break it to you, but also I love to break it to you kind of things. Selling is also such a core part of business that if we are making selling mean something bad and we're not sold on the concept of sales being a neutral energy exchange and something that's necessary in business and something that is important in business, it makes it really hard then to make money and have a successful, sustainable business and to do the work you want to do in your business, to be able to be of service, to be able to help people. And so it's really interesting and fascinating how if we don't make that first sale of selling can be a beautiful transformative thing, selling can be a neutral thing, selling can be a really important thing in business. It's not, it can be a, powerful energy exchange. If we're not making that first sale in our business, we can just see how this ripples down and affects everything else in your business. And so for me, and I will share because this in my personal business and with so many clients, it opens up other sales I've made. But for me, when I made the sale to myself that selling was actually a great thing, and when I like really got sold on that and really got sold on this belief, like I have a whole course now, right? Sell out without feeling like a sellout, completely free. I will make sure I drop the link for that too if y'all haven't signed up for it. It's really good. It's 6 weeks, y'all. I could like sell this for thousands of dollars and I give it away for free because I believe in it so much and I want you to have access to it. So I'll make sure that I do drop a link to that. But I believe, and I'm so sold on selling being such a transformative, important part in business and really a transformative step for our clients as well, that I've created a whole course around this, right? I teach this all the time. I love it that much, but I had to make that first sale to myself to be able to then show up in my business to sell in a way that actually had people want to buy from me. Because as long as we think sales are yucky, as long as we think they're gross, as long as we think they're manipulative, as long as we think they're bad, as long as we think when I sell to someone, I might be taking something away from them. I might be taking money from them. I'm like, this is a bad like, taking as opposed to receiving. We're not going to want to show up and sell, right? We're going to block ourselves from making money in business. And again, this is such a core cornerstone to being able to profit and have a sustainable business. Okay, let's see here. I have a comment from Ruth. Hi, Ruth. It's so nice to see you. I see your emoji, or a little photo image, but so happy to have you here. I always love when you're here. She says, just comment before I take the dog out and head to bed. I think when you have a business and the business is you can't and shouldn't detach from your business and services. What you, however, have to do is attach, this just popped up, yourself and sense of self-worth based on your sales or really the rejections from non-sales or sale levels below your expectations. Ruth, I love, you probably just hopped out your dog, but I love that reflection and comment. And I think we're saying the same thing in different ways. I think, and when I say it, and this is actually helpful because then I can preface what I mean by detach yourself from business. I think 1,000% to what Ruth is saying, and just for everyone watching, I think it's so important to detach your self-worth, like Ruth said, from your sales, from your business and from the money you're making, and just seeing like you are inherently, I always say you're inherently worthy as a human, period. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy. Period, full stop. Your worth is not determined on your business. And we do want to separate that out. And I think, yes, we want to infuse ourselves in our business. Like, I think it's one of those things where there's a little bit of dichotomy here, where there's a little bit of bothness. We want to pour ourselves into business. I talk about owning your work, showing up, taking up space, energetically being in your work. I think that's so important. And I think there's a healthy detachment we can make from our businesses and work where we see, and I am not my business. I am not my work. I do not solely identify as, for me, for example, like Kim Argersinger LLC. And so I don't know if that makes sense in context here, but I think it's one of those, like, it's a little bit of yes and, a little bit of dichotomy, a little bit of it can be both. Where like, yes, pour everything into your business, and also can you detach and see you're also not your business. And almost, I like to see my business and my work as almost, while it is me, I pour all of me into it, it's also a separate part outside of me as a human being. Hopefully that makes sense. Becky says, I don't think sales are yucky, but I know how transformative my work is. So when I don't sell as many spots as I feel the course should have, I feel super frustrated. And Ruth says, still here. Hi, Ruth. And let me know, Ruth, if that makes sense, or if you have any follow-ups on that. I think Becky, I think what's lovely here, I mean, I think a couple things. I love that you know sales aren't yucky, because I think that's just helpful for everyone to hear. And I love hearing how you know how transformative your work is. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, this is hard without, I don't want to like ask you too many questions that are challenging on a live stream, but I think it's really interesting for like just everyone here to just have a conversation around how when we get really attached to what we feel something should bring in, right? Like expectations of any kind, we get super attached to like what those numbers mean. I think that's when we can get frustrated, as opposed to when we have a little more neutrality or detachment around numbers. And I think, again, this is one of those dichotomous is like my favorite word right now, apparently, because I've said it like 5 times on our live stream. But I think that's one of those almost confusing mindsets in business, because of course, if you're having a launch, you're going to have sales goals. And of course, if you're having a launch, you're going to want to be in the belief of we can reach these sales goals, because that's also how we show up and create that. And I think that's really important. And I think there's something when we get wrapped around attaching to what we expect to reach in terms of sales goals or income goals or numbers in business, or anywhere in life, and we ascribe meaning to that. Like, I think that's just helpful to see, like, what do we feel that number should mean here? I feel the course should have, and just whenever like there's that word should, be interesting to be like, why? What are you making that mean? Because X, Y, and Z. I think in that like X, Y, and Z phrase there, that's often the piece that we want to unpack a little bit mindset wise. That's just helpful to unwind, because that should have, because I think that X, Y, and Z, like that usually is just an interesting place to see like, oh, what's coming up there? Like, where do I have a little bit of attachment there? Where's the opportunity for me to let go and release a little bit more there? So hopefully that makes sense. And I also super hear you on the frustrated piece, but that might be an interesting place to play with some of that frustration, so that you can also then flip flop. And this is so in line with this week's podcast episode, flip flop the meaning then of, instead of feeling frustrated, where it's like, oh, what if I made this mean something different? What if I filled in like, I absolutely know I can reach this sales goal next launch around. Like, here are all the reasons this number is exactly the perfect number for me this time. And maybe even here is the really awesome lesson benefit I learned for my next launch, or like piece of data I have for my next launch. Becky says, I feel the people intuitively, LOL. I feel you on that. I think a lot of my clients are that way. So I totally hear you on that. I think with that, I'll be interested to hear what else you say, Becky. I think be interesting to hear what you're making that mean, like just to play for yourself, what you're making that mean. I know for some of my other clients who are really intuitive and like energetically connected. So I'm not projecting this onto you. I just have heard from some of that. I think there can almost be, like, if you can feel people intuitively that you're calling in, I think sometimes they can almost feel like they're letting someone down, or they're not serving someone. Like, I think some of the frustrated piece can almost come up from a place of service. But I think even there, it's just interesting to unwind and unpack a little bit, where it's like, and again, not saying that this is necessarily what you're feeling if you're feeling them intuitively, but I know for some of my clients, it's just helpful there to even detach a little bit and see it's not their responsibility to take that on. Their job is to show up fully in their launch or in their sales process. Their job is to show up fully all the ways they know how, to take the intuitive hits, to take the inspired action, to make sure they're really showing up in their follow-up process and doing, speaking to the objections and all of those things. But then their job is also, even if they can feel people intuitively, to also let them like meet them halfway and come in through the door. So I don't know if that's, again, I'm just guessing a little bit here since we're chatting on a live stream, but I think it might just be interesting to play with that, to unwind it for yourself a little bit. Because I will say, we're kind of on a side tangent here, y'all, but I will say, just from a sales perspective, I think what's just so helpful and so fascinating, something I've just seen over and over again myself, and I've just seen with clients, the more we can stay in the belief of and stay focused on the people you're intuitively calling in, or that sales goal, but also hold it really lightly with open hands from more of that detached place, the easier it is to call people in and to hold them and to sell. The more we feel like there's an expectation or a little grippiness around it, the harder it is. Because if you just think like, what happens when we're grippy, we start to close our hands up. And the more we think something has to be a certain way, or it should be a certain way, we start to close our hands up. We start to get a little more grippy energetically. And so the more we can release that, the more we can also call in. There's there's, there's a little bit of energetics to the sales stuff. Ruth says, yeah, for sure. Your business is a reflection of you. It's something you have invested in every sense of the word and a part of you, but it does not define you and is not the complete version of you. This is where compartmentalizing comes in. Better go catch the replay. Have a nice walk with your dog. I will see you later in the replay. And I think that's a great way to kind of recap what we were talking about, Ruth. It's exactly what Ruth is saying. Business is a reflection of you. It's something we do invest in. We're literally talking about our energy in our business here, but it's not the complete version of you. And I think that's just where it's really, really helpful. I have some of my clients name their business. That's why some people literally name their business like an LLC that's different than their name to create some of that separation. And I think, again, it's just one of those constructs where it's like, we hold both to be true in our mind, where you can be your business, it can be you, and also create that separation where it's not all of you. And so especially when it comes to sales, and we're talking about here, where you can make decisions and choices and have beliefs in your business and make them almost outside of you, because sometimes what we do is we mush everything together. My business is me. My work is me. And then when we talk about sales, this is why suddenly selling in your business can feel really, really challenging, where it might feel super easy to sell outside of your business. And so if you can almost create a little bit of that separation, it also makes it feel a little easier to sell in your business, because you don't feel like you're selling yourself and your soul. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let me pull up my notes here because I am off on tangents. And Becky, let me know if you have thoughts, questions pop up, and if that is making sense for you. So the first most important sale that I found personally game-changing, that I would invite everyone to play with, is checking in with, are you sold on the idea of it being okay to sell in your business and receive money for your work? Are you sold on that concept, on that being a beautiful, great thing? Something I always remind clients, that I'll remind you, and we talk about this in the Sell Out course, is I really believe that sales can be transformational, but I also think I think of selling as simply all about being an energy exchange and money being an energy exchange. And so all we're doing is we're exchanging energy through money. We're not taking something away from someone when we're selling, right? We are receiving money in exchange for a service or a good that you're providing someone, right? It's just an energy exchange. That's only yucky and icky if the exchange is off, right? If on either side, someone is giving more than they're receiving, or feels like they're receiving more than they're giving, that's when sales tends to feel yucky and weird. But if we can see, as long as we're in alignment there, that's just a beautiful energy exchange. And that's something we're doing all over the place, with and without money in our life. We as humans love to reciprocate. Like, this is a very, very normal way of being. And so I think the more you can see that and make that as the first sale in your business, it makes it really a lot easier. It sets you up to make the next two sales in business that I think are also really, really important. And I think it's really fascinating that none of these I'm saying are selling to someone else, but all of these sales are what make it exponentially easier to sell and grow and scale your business across the board. So the other two sales that I find really powerful to make in your business is getting sold on your work. And that is something my coach, Lacey Seitz, she talks about in her sales program. I won't take credit for that idea. I think it's such a smart idea and way of talking about it. And that is definitely something I've done, that I coach my clients on. And that's really that idea of, before you can sell your work to someone else, you have to be sold on your work yourself. And again, everyone here is going to be in a different place. What I find for a lot of my clients is they are sold on their work, but all of the business stuff, selling, marketing, all of that has them start to question how sold they are in their work, and getting kind of into the online space and comparisonitis. And it's almost like they start in business because they're so sold on it. And then it's all of that other kind of mindset trash that could come in around, like, do I know how to sell? Do I know how to market? Am I pricing this right? What if I have an unhappy customer? Almost things that have nothing to do with their work, that has them start to not believe in the transformation of their work the same way, which is kind of going back to why I think it's so important to first sell yourself on selling being a beautiful, powerful thing, and something that you know how to do just inherently as a human. The other sale that I would offer and invite everyone, we can unpack them a little bit, and then I want to see comments from everyone. Oh, and just something froze here, is playing with the idea of selling yourself on, I would almost say this has to come before believing your work being sold on your work. I would say like being sold on your work to me is almost the third sale you have to make. I would say the sale before that is being sold on being a successful business owner. So what I mean by this is one of the biggest things I see hold entrepreneurs back, aside from thinking sales is yucky, because sales is such a lifeblood of your business. And if you think it right, if you resist that, it's just going to persist and you're not going to show up and sell. But is really not being sold on the idea that they are going to be a successful business owner, that they are a successful business, that they're going to run their business like a business. And when we're not sold on that concept, and when we haven't made that decision, you don't show up as a successful business owner. You also don't treat your business like a business. And one of the things your business needs, if you're treating it like a business, is very neutral, foundational business things like selling, like being able to receive money for your work, right? Like that's just a core part of business. And so I say these as important sales you have to make yourself in business, because I find so often we just try to like skip over these things mindset wise and jump right to, let me just go out there and sell my work. And then we wonder why we have such a hard time making a sale to another human. But so often underneath it is the narrative that either selling is gross, or I actually don't think I could be a successful business owner. I haven't decided this is going to be successful. I'm just going to wait and see how this works out. Or like, I say this with so much love, and probably some of my clients will think I'm talking about them, but this comes up for everyone. Almost this idea of like, how can I figure out how to have a business without having to treat it like a business? Like I'm going to run a business, but like not like a business, like without having to sell, without having to do the things businesses do. And like everyone gets to do what makes them happy, absolutely. But I think it's a lot easier. And this is why I call these the game-changing sales in my business. I think it's a lot easier when you decide and you get sold on the idea that business isn't a dirty word, right? You can have business any way you want. Selling isn't a dirty word. Deciding to be a successful business owner and making that sale to yourself, that's not a bad thing. That's actually what helps set you up to grow and scale. And then, of course, from that place, ideally you are sold on the transformation of your work, or you wouldn't have started your business. But really looking in and seeing like, and am I sold on my work being such an amazing gift to give to people? I know when people pay me money, there's this beautiful energy exchange and it is going to help them. Like this is the best place they can put their money. Let's see. Becky says, I definitely have a deep desire to be growing my reach and impact. That's where the attachment to more people comes from. And it's after 4.5 years. I'm a little fatigued on launching. I have some things to suss out. I heard you for sharing that. Thank you for being so open. I think it's just so helpful for everyone to hear, and just to hear how normal that is, and to also hear, like, I think for everyone listening here as we talk through this, like super normal to notice like, oh, I have this attachment coming up, and also I feel this fatigue after so many years. And the beautiful thing here is like, then because you've identified that, you can see like, oh, these are probably the things for me to take a look at. Like, where is the attachment from more people coming from? Like, why am I not giving myself credit for the people already in front of me? Like, what am I making that mean? And also like, interesting, if I'm feeling fatigued, I'm not projecting anything onto you, but just based on what you're sharing here, I don't assume to know what's going on in your business, Becky, but just like interesting to see like, oh, I'm a little fatigued on launching. Like maybe some of what's really coming up is around that. Like maybe there's something for me to look at here and to adjust just even around, launching in general. Or maybe I'm just in the middle of a launch and maybe I don't feel this way after my launch, but this always happens when I'm 1 week out, because launching in general for most people when they're about a week out, like that's usually like crunch time in launching. So it might even just be interesting to notice like, this is just some noise my brain wants to kick up. It does this every single time I launch. And then as soon as I'm over, like that was the best thing ever. I'm so happy and thrilled. I don't know, I'm making assumptions here, but I know for many of my clients, and just to normalize for everyone going through launching is a little bit of a marathon, even if you have a short launch window of a week or two. And most of the time in the middle of the launch, most people are like, I just want out. I hate launching. I don't want to do this. And I think it's such a mindset exercise to stay in it and want to finish till the finish line. And most people feel so different as soon as cart closes, and then kind of look back with rose-colored glasses. So also just to normalize that bit apart. Nikita says, not a dirty word at all. Embrace the business journey. Yes, so much yes to that. It's not a dirty world at all. Business isn't a dirty word and sales is not a dirty word. Neither one of them. I mean, they're neutral words, if anything. I think all words only have meaning if we put meaning onto them. But I think they can also be very beautiful, powerful, transformative words for all of us. Nikki says, I spent years in business hoping that I could just do what I do, not the businessy stuff. I appreciate you so much for sharing that because I think that is so normal and so common. I think so many people, especially in our space where, again, we're passion driven, we're heart centered. I have a lot of creatives here, a lot of people who are also artists and, bringing their artwork into business. I think there is almost this way where it's sort of like, how do I build a business while avoiding all the businessy stuff? And I think it's just so beautiful to notice, like, when we sell ourselves on the businessy stuff not being bad, when we can sell ourselves on loving the process of building a business and sales being a beautiful thing, right? Everything gets a lot easier. We also start to see, and you'll have to tell me if this feels true for you, Nikita, but something I find really fascinating is the more we try to resist it or avoid it, the more we see so much of it is super simple. And so much of it is stuff that all of us have been doing outside of our businesses, and we don't resist or make wrong there. It's just this funny thing we do as soon as we're like, I want to get paid for the work I love, that suddenly it starts to feel really heavy because we just ascribe meaning to it, or we ascribe stories to, like, I don't know how to do this, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have an MBA, or whatever, or I do have an MBA and they didn't teach me enough in business school, whatever the noise the brain wants to hand you. So I just think always a really fascinating thing to notice. But that's why these sales are so game changing for you in your business. If you get sold on selling being a beautiful, wonderful thing, and, like, it's neutral as best and an important part of business. And if you get sold on having a successful business and running your business like a business and loving that part, everything gets so much easier than selling, like making money, like everything. Like, if you like the day-to-day of your business and all that, like, so much easier to show up for. And then we subconsciously don't push stuff away. And then, of course, if you're sold on your work and you believe in your work and you love, like, it's transformative, that's also super important for us to keep in this trifecta, in this magic trio. Becky says, noisy brain, LOL. Noisy brain for all of us. That's called being human. So yes, very, like, LOL to that, but I think it's why I have a job. It's why I'll continue to have a job. It's why I still work with a coach, because I also have a noisy brain. I think all of us do. So super noisy brains for all of us, and it's helpful to have that noise come out so we can observe it and catch it, like, oh, well, that's just a noise. I'm just going to turn the volume down on that BS. Becky says, yes, oh my God, I usually decide I want to play the lottery and forget the whole thing. It's so true. I think pretty much everyone feels that way launching. And then I find, this is also like, can you sell yourself on the idea of, like, actually, I love to launch and I could treat this like a game. And I think it's sort of like selling ourselves on the idea, like, I love selling, or I love treating my business like a business, or building a business is great. I think when we can play that game with ourselves with launching, I've just found this with clients too, where suddenly they're like, oh, wait, launching is actually really fun. I actually love it. It's actually really easy. It's just, we get so almost like used to, there needs to be pressure halfway through this, because, again, of what maybe the expectations or what we're making it mean in terms of what we want for numbers rolling in. Anyway, not to sidetrack us too much. Nikita says, so true. I'm glad that resonates. So those are, I'll try to, like, I always go off on 45 tangents, y'all, but throw questions at me if you have them. So those are the 3 sales that I think are crucial in your business, and the ones that have made a huge shift for me. I always like to say and remind people, my strategy has not changed that much in my business. And of course, I'm benefiting from the compound effect of having been in business for over 5 years, but the results of my business, the income wins I share. I just shared on last week's live stream that Kim Argesinger Coaching LLC brought in 200K cash in the first 6 months of the year. Like, the difference between, and last year we brought in 100K cash at the same 6-year mark, and the year before, I don't know, it was probably half of that. I don't exactly know what the numbers are, but the difference in that growth and scalability, it's not like we're changing strategies all the time. It's not like this year I suddenly learned a new secret to sales. I've definitely mastered the art and mindset of selling without the ick, is what I call it. But, like, yes, and I like deepen my craft and I deepen my work, but it's not like, oh, but then there was this like super amazing strategy that I learned that made all the difference. So much of it was year one, working, not having the mindset of it being okay to sell, not being sold on being a successful business owner, and that causing me to doubt what I actually like. I actually believe, I think my first year in business, I was a great coach. And then that noise came in and had me second guess myself. And then doing the work to make those sales to myself. And that's been the foundation every year going forward. And the more I get sold on that, the more I'm able to show up in my strategy and the more results come in, which is why I want to bring it to you. Because I think sometimes we almost go outside ourselves looking for the answer and think like that's the magic formula, when so often when you can make those shifts internally, that makes like exponential difference externally, and you also just cut yourself a little more slack. um, I'm just going to see my questions, and then I'll share a couple questions, journaling questions that I share with clients. Oh, gotta catch the replay. Definitely catch the replay. I know we're kind of at the end, but definitely you can rewind back. And if any of you, as we're closing out, if you do have questions for me, nice to see you though, appreciate. Let me just pull up my notes here. So I thought I'd share a couple questions. I said I would share a practice with you, just some questions, journaling questions that I like to return to, that I like to give to clients as well, that I find can be helpful with all of this. And then if you want, this is not what we talked about in this week's podcast episode, but we talked about a question around what you're making things mean with my friend Elise on this week's one question, unapologetic questions for unapologetic results, my podcast. So I'll make sure we drop a link to that as well if you want just some more ideas on how to journal around this, because I think that conversation was really, really valuable and different, but aligned with what we're talking about here. But one of the things I think can be really helpful to journal around is, what are you deciding is true for you as a business owner? So obviously I want you to be sold on the idea that like sales are magical and transformative and beautiful and of service. I believe that, but that is because I decided that's true for me as a business owner. And of course I want you to decide as a business owner, like I maybe love launching, or I like it feels really good to run the day-to-day of my business. But I think those are things we all have to decide for ourselves. And so I think it's helpful just to journal and ask yourself, what am I deciding is true for myself as a business owner? Like, what am I currently deciding is true? And then what do I want to decide is true for myself as a business owner? And see that those don't always match up. And that's the opportunity for you to make kind of the mindset leap. So if, for example, if what I'm deciding for myself is true as a business owner is that I'm only like, sales are yucky, so people need to come and find me. And if my work is good enough, and I'm like, this is the funny game we play when we're like, I know my work is great. So if my work is good enough, people will just come find me in my business and pay me. I say this with so much love. I hear this all the time from y'all. That is mindset chatter, right? But that's something you're deciding is true for you in your business. Instead of, what do I decide is true for me as a business owner? What do I want to decide is true for me as a business owner? The flip there might be, I'm deciding, I know my work is great and transformative, and I'm deciding as a business owner, it's my responsibility to show up and sell. I'm deciding as a business owner, of course, people want to pay me for my work, but it's my job to make sure I put it in front of them and sell it to them so that I can help them with the power of this work. There's not a question about if my work is good enough. The question is, am I helping people understand that? And can you see that flip there where it's like, what are you deciding right now is true? And then is that, like, just check in, like, is that actually serving your business? And if we take it then and flip it over, what do we want to decide is true for you as a business owner? It'd be really powerful there just to see what you want to shift into, what you want to step into. The other way you can play with that is, what are you deciding right now is true for you as a business owner? It's helpful to even like just brain dump it all out and just to see, because sometimes we don't even realize, right? We just are so used to our beliefs being true. We just accept them as truth. We don't even realize sometimes the beliefs we have in there that aren't serving us. And then you can play with the idea too of, if I already had the success I wanted, if I already had the successful launch I wanted, if I was already making, say you want to be $1 million business owner, if I was already $1 million business owner, what would I decide? What would I have already decided is true for me in business? And go through each of those, see if they're the same. And it'll be interesting for you to see, oh, but if I was a $1 million business owner, like, would I be deciding this is true? Interesting. Probably not. Not on all of them. Just seeing here, no comments there. So I find that can be really just eye-opening and help you unpack some of that and just help you notice some of the places maybe there's an opportunity to shift your thinking, to shift the decisions you're making. So just a quick sip of water. I won't give you too many journaling prompts because otherwise you won't do them, but play around with that one. The other one that I would offer for you to play with in terms of this idea of getting into like making that first important sale in your business, of believing that sales are beautiful, that sales are transformative, that you're someone who sells, that it's okay to sell and receive money. I think a great question to ask yourself if you're feeling resistance around that. So I think everyone who chimed in here with comments is actually pretty sold on the idea that sales are great. But I know how many of you might be watching silently later on the replay don't always feel that's true, and that's okay. I think what's beautiful to see is this is something that you can shift. It's simply a belief we have, but might just be helpful to ask yourself, and this is a journaling question I've asked myself in the past. What do you need to know or believe to be sold on selling your services on your business? So what do you need to know or believe to be sold on selling your services in your business? And even what do you need to notice to be sold on selling your services in your business? So for me, something I needed to notice to be sold on selling my services in my business is that, wait, when I sell and when I receive money for my work, I actually help people even more. I help people get bigger and better results. When I show up and sell, not only do I make money in my business, but the people I'm supporting get to make more money in their business, right? That was something that really helped me to get more sold on selling in my business. For you, might be something completely different. Maybe it's what do you need to notice to be sold on selling services in your business? Maybe it's noticing you see someone else who's a really great example of that and that it's not yucky or icky. That can be just a great one to help shift some of the narrative in the mind around that. And then what do you need to know or believe about your work to be sold on it? So this is that last sale we're making there around your work. I think this can be a really great thing there. Like, what do you already know or believe about your work that does have you sold on it? And what do you need to know or believe or to notice about your work to be sold on it? This is such a beautiful exercise for yourself because you're going to get some really great evidence about your work. You're also going to see like, oh, these are the places I can reinforce for myself. And this is something you can review over and over again for yourself, because so often, what are we trying? So many people are, what do we try to do? We like try to go outside of ourselves to get those affirmations, to get the approval, to get the applause. Sometimes we unintentionally try to do this through our business, right? This is where we're talking like you're worthy as a human, period. You don't get your self-worth through your business, even though it can give you esteem because you feel good about your work, two separate things. But I think just noticing here where it's like, oh, then these are all the things you need to affirm for yourself. And here's a fun bonus. If you do this, these are also things you get to start telling people in your content and your copy as reasons they should be sold on you and your work as well, why they should hire you. So it's kind of a great exercise for your content and copy as well. And then let me just see if I have comments. And then I have one cringeworthy question I'll leave you with here. So the last question, and this is a journaling prompt that I almost don't want to share because I think it could come across the wrong way, but I think it's really beneficial for what we're talking about here today in terms of really being sold on the idea of sales being a heart-centered, beautiful, active service instead of sales being yucky or icky. So understand that is why we're asking this question. I am not throwing this question at you as I want you to take the answer to this and then like take it as a practical strategy in your business. But a question sometimes sales teachings will ask you is to ask why should someone get in debt for your services? And I don't love the question because I think it implies that someone should go in debt or that we should try to convince someone that it's okay to go in debt for our services. And I don't see the purpose of this question to be that. I think it's a really beneficial question for you to see, like almost to separate yourself out from it and to see the way I view a question like that is how someone pays for your work when you're selling to them is none of your business. But why is your work so powerful and why is selling so powerful that would be beneficial even if that happened? Hopefully that makes sense. And if you want to take it like down a notch, you can just ask yourself, why should someone pay for your services? And I think either one of those there. So they're a little cringeworthy, and I really want to be mindful of explaining the context around that. What I'm not suggesting I mean, y'all do you. What I am not suggesting, will never suggest, is you should go and sell your stuff and tell people it's okay for them to get in debt, or they should like put things on their credit card, or I don't know, what other gross things are there out there? Like go sell your engagement ring for coaching fees or something like that. That is not what we're talking about here. We're using a question like this as a way to stretch the mind to see what noise comes up, but also to see like how can you start to separate out someone else's finances from your finances, and like even see like what comes up around receiving money, and why do you believe in your work and selling and your business so much that that could be okay even if that happened. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm always so mindful around that. Okay. I love you all. Becky says, great prompts. Thank you. My pleasure. And if you do play with the prompts, feel free to post something in the group or to DM me if you don't want to post publicly. If anything comes up and you want to share it, always happy to hear from anyone. My DMs on Facebook, I have to be honest, I'm really, really bad at checking, but I'll try to be mindful to check them. I check them on Instagram for some reason a little bit more. So y'all can also message me on there. And I share little mini trainings on Instagram 3 times a week. I feel like I never tell anyone in the group that. So definitely come check me out over there. But feel free to share all the things in here. Becky says, thank you so much. So my pleasure. Thank you for being here and for sharing so openly. I appreciate you all so much. And I also appreciate all of you when you're sharing and engaging this way, because whether it's now or on the replay, I think it's so valuable for everyone in the group. Again, this isn't for me, it's for all of you, but just to like normalize the stuff that comes up for everyone, and the thoughts that come up for everyone, and just where we are all at different places in business. So I appreciate all of you for obviously being here and hanging with me and having this conversation, but also for being a part of the conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for any of you who do want support with your mindset around sales and the practical strategy around selling, so you can sell more to grow, build, scale your business in a way that feels good, in a way that feels in integrity and of service and in alignment, that is a big part of what I support my clients with. I'm really, really good at it. My clients get amazing results, everything from booking their first paying client ever to scaling to $1 million, and then all sorts of income numbers in between. I have an intensive opening up in August. So we do a coaching intensive around your sales process and the mindset around it, as well as the strategy and mapping that out. And then I should have some one-on-one spots opening up in September. And they do tend to fill up pretty quickly. So if that is something you're interested in, book a discovery call with me. They are super low pressure. That is what I'm all about. I actually like to make it a discovery process. I would love to connect with you. I'd love to see if we're a fit. And if not, I always love to refer people to some of my amazing clients or other people I know who are amazing. So I'll drop a link for that if anyone is interested. And then I will be back next week with another topic for y'all. Lots of love. And I just realized I'm saying lots of love and goodbye on here, but this happens. I have to find how to end us on Zoom. Here we go. Bye.